What is China really like? Using my own experience as a Westerner living here since 2018, I want to play my part narrowing the misconceptions that exist. Why do these misconceptions exist?
Hello amazing viewer, it's delighted to have you here at Comfort for Life, where I bring to you a compilation of TikTok videos to get a little bit from my channel or share videos for educational purposes. If you're new here, this is direct. Please consider subscribing. It's free of charge. And to my returning viewers, I love and appreciate you. Thank you so much for being part of this. Your support will take us a long way. Enjoy today's.
We are addressing the misconceptions that Americans have of China. I will invite you to watch with me these few clips that I put together and let me know what you think. Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comment section. Let's interact. I'll be giving my thought at the end of the video. Kindly give this video a thumbs up and let's dive in.
Hi everybody. You know, growing up in the United States, you often hear misconceptions about the Chinese culture. So I wanted to share with you 3 common misconceptions about Chinese culture that you hear in the United States. Number 1, a lot of Americans think that all Chinese people know Kung Fu, or Kung Fu as it's said in Chinese. In the 1960s, Bruce Lee, Li Xiaolong, 你们知道他是谁吗? brought Kung Fu to light in the United States and made it quite popular. So from that point forward, a lot of Americans started to believe that all Chinese people know Kung Fu. Number 2, a lot of people believe that American Chinese food is authentic Chinese food, but that's just not true. Now, 2 popular dishes that you'll find often in American Chinese restaurants is General Tso's chicken and egg rolls. General Tso's chicken in Chinese is 左宗鸡, and an egg roll is a chunjuan. Now, I know that a chunjuan is actually quite common in Chinese cuisine, but it's not the same thing. It's much larger, it's deep fried, it's got a different filling. It's tasty actually, you should give it a try, but it's not authentic Chinese food. Number 3, a lot of Americans also believe that all Chinese people have the same mother tongue, which isn't true because we know that there's lots of different dialects in China depending on where you're from. So there you go, 3 common misconceptions that Americans often have about Chinese culture. Do you know of other misconceptions? Go ahead and put it in the comments.
Why does the world hate China? Well, it's a question I hear often. So why do so many countries seem to have a problem with China? But when you look at it closely, I believe it's not about politics, it's about the competition. So firstly, let's talk about when China made breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, the world felt it. Stock markets reacted violently. NVIDIA's value plunged by $589 billion in one day. Why? Because China is no longer just a follower in AI, it's a leader. Then, in 1994, China had to buy second-hand tunnel boring machines from Germany. Engineers laughed, saying China wouldn't make its own for 100 years. By 2020, China had 1,000 of them at a fraction of the cost. So, guess who's laughing now? In 2015, China still had to import a tiny ball that goes inside the ballpoint pen. The price, $120,000 per ton. So China decided to make its own, and the price crashed to $50,000. 2 foreign suppliers went bankrupt. This wasn't just about a ball, it's a power shift. The Swedish companies like Ericsson, Volvo, and IKEA once dominated. Now Chinese brands are outpacing them in mobile tech, automotive, and retail. China really isn't stealing success, it's earning it. Now, I've been coming to China for more than 25 years, and now I live here with my son, Ethan. I've seen this country transform firsthand. My eldest son, Tom, he just plays his music here in Shanghai because he's a DJ. And my youngest son, Ethan, he loves life here with me studying. My younger brother will be visiting here for the first time very soon. My best friend is also coming over shortly. And more family members of mine are coming over later in the year. I post on social media in the West to promote the beauty and the majestic charm of China. I also tell everyone that, in my humble opinion, China is the safest country in the world. So, let's talk about it. Is it the world's resentment really about politics? Or is it about fear? Fear of what? I don't know. You guys tell me. Explain to me. Tell me what's your opinion. Take care for now. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I shall see you all in the next.
我有毛，他们住在我家，他们穿尿布，这是我的毛。
Just because we asked you for the cat text doesn't mean we eat dogs. I would never eat my dog. I love her.
What is China really like? Using my own experience as a Westerner living here since 2018, I want to play my part narrowing the misconceptions that exist. Why do these misconceptions exist? I can't speak to that in any legislative sense. I'm not a congressman, I'm not a senator, I'm not even an American citizen. However, when that bipartisan animosity towards China trickles down into antagonism towards the Chinese people or vice versa, that's a problem that regular people like us can solve. So let's break that down. I've lived in China since 2018 and it is an amazing place. It is more similar to the United States of America than you might expect. Why? First of all, I think there is an entrepreneurial spirit to China. There is a go up and get them attitude towards life, business and money making and society in general. This also creates a kind of social cohesiveness which I find very admirable about China. It's obviously more homogenous than the United States, and that's not to say that one system is better than the other. In some ways, I think that China emulates the United States, but without elements like crime or extensive drug use. That's a genuine reflection. I lived in America more than 10 years ago, and I see quite strong similarities. I think this social cohesiveness is a really important part of China. You see this sometimes with the delivery drivers. Meituan is the delivery app here. I always admire how quickly they fulfill their orders, knock on the door very politely, and then run away again to complete their next order to help society and help people eat food. I always think this after 7 years living here. I also think that China is absolutely a place where you can make money. If you have a very simplistic view of China as some sort of anti-American, anti-entrepreneurial area, that is something where you need to check yourself a little bit. You can make money here potentially much more quickly than you can in many other countries of the world. For example, I came here in 2018. I was admittedly still very young, but I was not wealthy. And these days, I'm perfectly comfortable, he said euphemistically with a glint in his eye. So China is absolutely a place where you can seize your future in a way that is not totally dissimilar to the concept of the American dream. These are the similarities between America and China that exist in my mind after several years living here, and hopefully we can break down those obstacles more.
I'm a Chinese Canadian who grew up in Toronto. I came to China about 3 years ago, and I want to tell you some truth about it. When I first came here, I was really upset. But as time went by, I have come to realize that it is better to be here right now. But every system has pros and cons, right? It's really about what you value more. Some common concerns from the West is like, oh, you don't have privacy in China and all the media is controlled by the government, so it's very, very biased. Okay, let's talk about these two. So yes, I don't have privacy in China. There are security cameras everywhere, covering every single corner of public space. And it has facial recognition of its citizens. So yes, they know. But I am absolutely safe. Crime rate is so low, even petty thieves are forced to switch occupation. And yes, the media is controlled, but it also comes to our advantage. I'll give you an example that combines these two things. So last year at a hospital, there was this old man, like in his 80s, and he took somebody else's phone. The lady reported it lost, they checked the security camera, and then they located this old man. And the video showed that he took it intentionally. And they posted this video on their official news channel and say, oh, this old man stole a phone. And of course, the public started shaming him and like kind of cyberbullying him. Cyber friends being cyber, they found who he is, where he lives. And people had really, really nasty, mean things to say to him. Like, oh, shame on your whole family. I would be so ashamed if I was your kid. Your offsprings are probably not any better than you are. It was bad, right? It was bad. But you know what effect it had? It made an example of how bad it can get if you just stole something like a phone. And the Chinese culture, or most Asian cultures, are very community-based. My reputation directly affects the reputation of my whole family. And the worst thing you can do is bring disgrace to your family name. So now the thieves are presented with a question. Is it worth it to steal that phone? And that's just stealing a phone. Think about other bigger crimes. The punishment is much worse and more cruel. So as a result, for women who, don't look like a total toad, I'm able to walk safely down the street, like downtown Shanghai where all the clubs are. I can safely walk down at 2 a.m. and I know that I am safe. To me, that's more important than not having anybody know that I'm going to the grocery store or I'm on my way to work. There are billions of people here. Why do they give a shit about where I'm going? Obviously, I'm not saying that there are no problems here. Yeah, there are lots of problems here, all right? But at the end of the day, I'm happy to be living here. I do invite you all to come visit if possible. I think it will be an eye-opening experience.
Hello, my friends on Rednote. Yesterday, I invited you to ask me anything about China, and today I've already received the good one, and it says this. Hello, my friend. I have a question. I have heard you guys have what is called a social credit score. If it is not high enough, you cannot get on public transportation or buy certain things. Is this true? Thank you. I really appreciate this question. The idea of a social credit score is a very common misconception about China. So let me clear things up. First of all, unlike financial credit scores in the United States, China does not have a single national personal social credit score. Some private companies like Alibaba's Sesame Credit and Tencent's WeChat score experimented with point-based reward programs, but these are not government-run and have nothing to do with public access or restrictions. They function more like loyalty programs, similar to how a high credit score in the United States might get you better loan rates or credit card perks. To the second part of your question, again, no, there's no system that prevents ordinary citizens from buying groceries, using public transport, or making everyday purchase based on a social credit score. However, China does have a blacklist for serious offenders, particularly those who refuse to pay debts after a court ruling. If someone is legally determined to be dishonest, such as evading debts despite having the means to pay, they might temporarily face certain restrictions, like being unable to purchase luxury travel tickets, for example, flights or high-speed trains. And here's a fun fact. While they may be restricted from buying high-speed train or plane tickets, they can still travel on slower trains known as green-skinned trains. These railway fleets, built during the Cold War era, offer a slow and basic travel experience on aging vehicles with minimal amenities, most notably no air conditioning. Additionally, only seated class is allowed, meaning these blacklisted passengers cannot book comfortable sleeper berths for longer journeys. To be clear, this is not a universal ban on transportation. It's simply a consequence for failing to comply with legal obligations, similar to how travel bans or financial penalties work in the United States for unpaid debts, court fines, or child support. To sum it up, the idea that China has a nationwide personal social credit score controlling people's daily lives is simply not true. I hope this clears things up, and thanks again for asking. I'm happy to share.
Hello, American friends.
Letter note 18 to my American friend. Recently, I learned that some American friends think that China has snatched the share of the U.S. manufacturing industry, leading to American unemployment and high prices. I want to share my thoughts. I don't want to go on and on, just the key points. The core issue of the loss of the U.S. domestic manufacturing industry is the U.S. dollar hegemony. The U.S. government and the blue and white six-pointed star capital behind it have always used media hegemony, force threats, military aggression, regime subversion, and assassinations to force all global commodities, such as oil, natural gas, and food, to be priced in U.S. dollars. They maintain a high exchange rate of the U.S. dollar against developing countries to obtain our labor results and resources at extremely low prices. So under the U.S. dollar-denominated system, the relatively low labor costs in developing countries have led to the loss of low and medium-end manufacturing industries in the U.S. Do you think raising tariffs can bring manufacturing back to the U.S.? It's impossible, no matter how much, even 1,000%. As long as the U.S. government and capitalists maintain the U.S. dollar hegemony, your domestic manufacturing costs will only be higher. I'm not sure if you can understand this. The U.S. dollar hegemony and the manufacturing industry are essentially opposed. Maintaining the U.S. dollar hegemony and the extremely high exchange rate of the U.S. dollar benefits capital but not the people. Why do the Chinese people live a good life? In fact, calculated in U.S. dollars, the wages of the Chinese people are not high. However, due to our huge domestic demand market, most of the commodities circulating in our country can bypass the U.S. dollar-denominated system. If the official exchange rate of the U.S. dollar to the RMB is 1 to 7.3, but according to the actual purchasing power parity, this number is basically 1 to 2.5. Considering the unreasonable high taxes, high medical expenses, and high-risk living environment in the US, this number may be close to 1-to-1. My American friend, have you realized the core of the problem? This is not a problem that can be solved by changing a president. It's a systemic issue, a problem of the underlying structure. The interests of your top-level capital and the bottom-level people are completely inconsistent, even opposite. You'll find that without solving the core problem, just raising tariffs today, giving out welfare tomorrow, and maybe reducing medical expenses the day after tomorrow are just addressing the surface problems, not the core ones. In my opinion, your presidential elections are really just about bringing out a scapegoat every once in a while for you to vent your anger. You think you have the right to change the president, but in fact, changing the president can't solve the core problem because what really rules the US is not the president, but capital or the aristocratic group. You're just their tools and slaves. When they can plunder a lot from outside, you can get a little something. When they can't plunder from outside, they can only eat your flesh and suck your blood to maintain their own well-being. Of course, these are just my opinions. I don't know if you've ever heard such views.
From the time I started sharing videos about Americans and Chinese and the connection that they're making via this app called Rednote, which is a Chinese app, which is not only connecting Americans and Chinese, but also it's connecting Americans to the rest of the world. I came to realize that not only were they fed misconceptions, were they fed, propaganda about China, but they are also disconnected from the rest of the world. Up to this time, there are many Americans who are now interested to know what is happening in the world beyond them, not just China, but they just want to know what else is hidden from us, what else is there that we don't know. Because I feel like Americans were in this comfort zone where they felt like we are having it, we are the world, we are this. But then coming to see the reality of the life of Chinese, it has opened up. It's kind of unveiling them, unveiling the veil on their eyes, and they're like, okay, so there's more to this world than just in the US. And I've seen clips of videos saying that they are living their American dreams elsewhere. So there are things that they believed about the US, and they knew that that's what the rest of the world thought the US was. But from people who have been observing the US from a distance, they can tell that these are people who are suffering. These are people who are not having it. These are people who are struggling, and they shouldn't be struggling that way. So the next clip that I'm about to display right here, it's explaining how and the reason for this disconnect.
If you live in the United States, I want to show you this video. It's probably the most important thing that you will see today. I think about it every single day of my life. It has completely changed my brain. This guy was asked, how do we close the perception gap between like Western Americans and the rest of the world? Watch it and then we'll talk about it after.
As I get older, I get less and less surprised by things. It's quite normal. But one thing that's really surprised me is that on the one hand, the United States has clearly the freest media in the world, the best finance newspapers, the best finance television stations in the world. But I can tell you this, as someone who travels to at least 30, 40 countries a year, when I come to the United States and I go to my hotel room in Charles Hotel and turn on the television, I feel that I've been cut off from the rest of the world. I literally, the insularity of the American discourse is actually frightening. And this is also true, by the way. I mean, I've said this to my friends anyway in New York, but this is true of the New York Times, this is true of the Washington Post, this is true of the Wall Street Journal. There's an incestuous, self-referential discourse among these newspaper journalists and so on and so forth. And they reinforce each other's perspectives and end up misunderstanding the world. Because, the one key point I emphasize is that the era of Western domination of world history was a 200-year aberration. It's coming to an end. And as a result of it, you've got to learn to understand non-Western perspectives in the world. And it's actually quite frightening that in many ways, I find intellectuals behind intellectuals, including in Serbia, where I just was, or Greece, or in Istanbul, because they are much more aware of what's happening in the world than most American intellectuals are.
Something that people need to understand. He says non-Western perspectives. As a Western American, it is so difficult to even know what that means because you are only exposed to Western American ideas. The rest of the world knows this. They understand their own culture. They also understand Western American culture. Western American people do not understand the rest of the world. I have learned this about myself by learning about non-Western cultures and perspectives, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we live in an insulated bubble of crazy propaganda, and we don't even know it. We are made to believe, since we are little tiny children, that we are the most free, and that everywhere else in the world is way behind us. They don't have the same rights that we do, which, yeah, that is true in some areas. But most Americans do not know anything about the rest of the world at all. And there's so many things that I love about living in the United States. I do not feel unlucky to be here. It's the opposite. I feel very lucky to have been born here. But I also feel so cut off from the rest of what is going on. And he pointed out that American intellectuals are still very behind intellectual people from other parts of the world. And when you realize that, it starts to make you feel crazy. And so as an American, and like trying to explain these different nuances to people and talking about other cultures and other countries, there is such a gap. People don't know what I'm talking about. You can't know what you don't know. And so everyone, oh my God. I gotta stop talking about this.
小红书
Mary.
Yeah, we really wanted to make this video to say thank you to the Chinese people on this app for being so welcoming to us and so kind.
And to the whole world, truthfully, for
Yes.
being there in our time of need.
Yes, and I love that we're all coming together on this app and all the countries together, and we're learning about each other. And and one thing is just us as Americans learning the truth about China and the Chinese people. And at first I felt very angry. I still do, but I think I feel really hopeful for our next generation that they'll be living the truth, and
That the lies will not come back.
right. Yeah, but we just really wanted to say thank you for having us here. We
Thank
hope
you.
to, yes, we hope to learn a lot together over the years.
Yes.
So, you know how we've been lied to our whole lives? Being told that China is filled with sweatshop workers and child labor? Seems like that was projection, because we are the sweatshop workers. And that's just a really hard realization.
小红书
I'm glad you watched this extent. It's been a lengthy video. Thank you so much for supporting Comfort for Life. If you're new here, kindly subscribe to the channel, and you can as well support the channel to the thank button down there. Thank me, thank Comfort. Yeah. Thank you so much for being part of this exciting journey of this amazing transformation. Thank you so much for all the Americans who joined Rednote and who are bringing all these things out that were hidden about China. Yeah, we have to admit that you guys are leading. You are the eyes of media. People always follow you everywhere. So I joined Rednote because of you Americans. So I'm also getting to understand what China is really like through you migrating to Changshu. So thank you for joining Rednote. And why don't we all travel to China and explore and see what is happening? Why? Thank you so much for being here. Like the video, subscribe, share, and also share your thoughts in the comment section. Goodbye for now. Appreciate you.